currently 10:49 a.m. on Thursday, September 26, 2024, and this is evidence capturing the specific environment, the terrorism by the entity that is engaged in not only state surveillance, but also federal stalking in violation of Title 18, 22618 subsections 1 and 2, and also engaged in the ongoing pattern of conduct that is the criminal intent to obstruct justice by engaging in what are additional criminal acts of harassment and terrorism as an entity, seeking to obstruct justice for purposes of silencing that target individual who is reporting the criminal system that is designed to result in what is the loss of life. That's a murder and kidnap of that entity. That's why you have a police departments, sheriff's departments, fire departments, airports engaging in what is group stalking, state surveillance with a population that is conspiring, in other words, to murder and kidnap an American citizen. That's what group stalking is. That's what the state of California is engaging in. And I am inside of the apartment where the fake sun is over this property, which is exactly what I documented this morning. So this is the light source that is directly over the apartment, just like I captured on video right now. I'm going to review that so that you can see it, but I want you to see this is the light source, and this is at 10:43 a.m. There's no sun that's seen through the windshield of the vehicles at San Diego at 10:42 in the morning. This light source is not seen where I'm at Woodside Senior Apartments. It's not over San Diego's Fairfield by Marriott. I'm inside of the hotel room facing the entrance, and I'm showing you the light source that's seen through the windshield of the vehicle parked in the handicap parking spot. I get very detailed aspects of this P.O.C. so that it is unmistakable what the entity is doing. And at 10:42 in the morning, there's no sun that's over my head where the Ontario police are stalking and engaging in specific acts intending to terrorize and harass by entity. It's not ordinary harassment. The police department's stalking, and they're exhibiting demon possession while they're stalking, and they're engaging in criminal acts of obstruction of justice, seeking to silence and oppress and threaten the person whom they're stalking while they're keeping you under surveillance on the internet. Everything that's occurring on my phone is that which a police department who is stalking you is aware of, and it's shared by the people of the state who are being documented. I'm not in the midst of specifically identifying the police department when the police department arrives, sounding helicopter activity and flying over the apartment building in the environment where the sun is not at the same time seen through any windshield of a vehicle parked at Fairfield by Marriott at the same time. And that's the environment where police departments are stalking, and they're stalking with the people of the state who are being documented, okay? And this is exhibiting demon possession and the ongoing conspiracy between the population and the government, who was represented by these corrupt police departments who are actually terrorist organizations masquerading as police departments, but it's not a convincing or persuasive masquerade. The Ontario Police Department has years of and is continuously being documented day and night as blatant stalking. It's traditional stalking is what they're doing. And they're also engaged in group stalking, as I show you the demonic environment that they are engaged in stalking in, okay? The entity is engaging in conduct stalking, and this is unheard of, and it's not supported by the law as it exists, that you cannot be found to be stalking in helicopters. This is what is tolerated, and this is what is being concealed because the courts are corrupt, and so is the population. This is public corruption. The entity is engaged in traditional stalking. They're engaged in surveillance by helicopter. That's how heavily the stalking conduct and the helicopter is captured. This is the entity that's engaging in what is harassment on its face. I'm showing you what is group stalking. These are demons who are engaging in state surveillance, group stalking as the entire state of California, while that pattern of conduct is underway in Ontario, California, in conformity to a long documented P.O.C. So this is, again, what I'm capturing. This is the light source at 10 in the morning, and this is what I am showing you. The Ontario International Airport is deviating far from anywhere near 2500 and 2900 Airport Drive in Ontario, California, to arrive over the Woodside Senior Apartments, which is located at 408 West G Street, the intersection of Vine and G Street, to be at any low elevation in the manner that I'm showing you. They're hovering in elevation as though they are rising in elevation, like you're taking off. If you've been on planes, and I've been speaking to this is common sense with regard to what the entity is doing. You can identify the targeting conduct not only through the placement of a fake sun over the apartment complex, which is revealing everything that's occurring is group stalking, because the demons are engaging in activity creation in engineered light under a light source which is distinct from what you clearly see. This is not sunlight that's appearing behind the door, above the door, on the ceiling, while the sun, what this is supposed to be the sun, this is a light source that's present for 11 plus hours at one address. This is distinct from the engineered light that's also distinct, speaking to the ongoing maintenance of audible activity and relevant positioning. Demons who are all around the property pacing, because that's what you're looking at when you're looking at crossing a path, walking to the vehicle, walking to the dumpster, walking from an apartment back to the vehicle, which is what this vendor whose license plate is documented, and they're going to federal prison. Okay, because while I'm documenting this inside of my apartment in this specific environment, the entity that's always engaged in surveillance with this population is arriving in helicopter, which is further honing in on who's going to federal prison for group stalking with the state of California. The entity engages in this pattern of conduct. It is intended to obstruct justice, terrorize you, silence you, intimidate you, and also literally threaten your life and your safety. This, I want to be clear, the demons, the terrorist organization, the Ontario Police, have engaged in criminal summoning, have engaged in repeated acts of kidnapping while exercising fictitious authority that they don't have, not only because they made up criminal charges, they engaged in what is criminal summoning with the entity who they're engaging in surveillance with. This is why, again, not only are the demon possessed who are part of the Ontario PD who are stalking helicopters, their names will be produced and they're going to federal prison. They are done with law enforcement, as is, again, the Ontario Police Department is to be disbanded. They have far exceeded the grounds for disbanding terrorist organizations who are documented terrorists, whose remaining presence in the city is literally a threat as opposed to a benefit, something that can remain and be refurbished, be restored. The Ontario Police Department is engaged in years of terrorism, showing massive public corruption and an unrepentant and determined and diligent effort to continuously engage in criminal activity as opposed to protecting and serving a community with whom it's not engaging in criminal conduct. That's not what the Ontario Police Department represents. They are beyond any sort of status where it should be maintained. You're talking about disbanding as a matter of deterrence, as a matter of making a statement with regard to the federal government's treatment of terrorism in the U.S., and it's occurring through literally the government. And it's using the corrupt police departments who are on the streets out in public as though they have authority under the law when they don't. They're engaging in state surveillance. In addition, they're engaging in kidnapping and murdering while this surveillance system is underway, as though they have probable cause while loss of life is occurring, while they're bearing weapons and identifying themselves as law enforcement officers bearing badges that's presenting them this fictitious authority that they don't have when they're engaged in criminal surveillance outside of the bounds of the Constitution and antithetical to the oath that they take. All of this is revealed while I'm capturing the entities stalking me in helicopters and in airplanes, which Alan D. Wappner is fully aware of, while it is a statewide pattern of conduct that is readily identifiable in a specific environment. This is speaking to the state's engagement in a pattern of conduct while an entirely fake sun, a light source, you can see it there, but this is not the natural environment because it remains here while I am capturing the same environment after 5 p.m. and this is the light source still at the same property at 5:49. Now, when you're getting to the prosecution of the entity, Avanath Communities, both its employees, the residents who are group stalking, and the vendors who have contracts with Avanath Communities are coming onto the grounds as this video that I'm going to review with you and compare it to the same location I'm at hours from now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the fake sun is over the same, it's literally over me at the same strip of land, okay? And that's to the exclusion that there's ever any sun rising at Alvarado Gardens, remaining over Alvarado Gardens, and setting at Alvarado Gardens. It's to the exclusion that there's ever any sun that you can also see through the windshield of a vehicle in San Diego, California at Fairfield by Marriott. But I captured that environment because that's speaking to stalking, which is demonic activity, the demonic environment, which is clearly different and juxtaposed with what is the specific environment as I've referred to it. The specific environment, it's very specific with regard to the maintenance of a light source that is not the sun that would be at the same property. In alignment to me, which is how the evidence of a population stalking you, that population includes every fire department, police department, sheriff's department, and airport who are maintaining all manners of demonic methods of surveillance in the sky space, which is what the entity is doing. This is captured at 5:49 p.m. This is the same environment where the entity is stalking in a helicopter, and as I'm documenting this phenomenon, the P.O.C., the entity arrives stalking in helicopters, which is exactly what I am capturing while I'm inside of the private space. So this is what I want you to recall, because this is what I'm documenting in the evening. And as I'm documenting, this is the same pattern. So this is why I want to go over this, because as I'm documenting group stalking by the people of the state, he's going to federal prison. He's group stalking with his minor children, engaging in surveilling a woman. This is a sex offender who has custody of minor children and is employing minor children to maintain elements of monitoring. That's what you're looking at. This is not sunlight on the ground, and this is not the sun that would be at the same property. You're looking at the light source I just showed you at 10 o'clock in the morning. I took a picture of it at 9 in the morning. This is captured at 5:49. That's not the sun that would be at the same address. How was there ever a son over Miami-Dade police on September 8, 2024, where he is subject to an arrest? Tariq Hill is subject to an arrest in Miami, Florida by the Miami-Dade Police Department, and the son is supposedly over them. You can see the son that you would refer to as the son over them at 10:20. They're 3 hours ahead of us. But when I'm showing you evidence of there's only one son and not 14, and it's remaining as a matter of evidence that no one can deny or disregard, reasonably so, at 5:49 p.m., and the light source is still remaining at this property as I'm documenting it. This morning, this is the next day, September 26, 2024. This is the light source that's over me at 9:37 a.m. In other words, this duration of time is suggesting, which I've already shown also, 7:38 in the morning, the fake sun is still here, adjacent to the same tree. Okay, this is where it's rising, and this is where it's remaining until the evening. This is the environment where the entity is engaging in what is criminally prosecuted as a concession, the unintelligent criminal activity of an entity that's corrupt. They're demon possessed, and they don't have any self-control, and that is providence with regard to prosecuting it, because they arrive pursuant to a pattern of conduct, which is revealing knowledge that they maintain while they're engaging in their criminal activity. And so, again, I want you to see the light source after 6 p.m. That's what I'm going through for you to see that again. This is captured in the afternoon. The entity is group stalking. Yeah, we're going forward so that you can see it again. If you're seeing it at 9:37 in the morning, you're still seeing it at the same property. It has never reached any other state. There's the fake sun flying directly over the apartment. And that's the Ontario Police Department group stalking while I'm inside of my apartment, capturing, giving evidence, pointing out those who are engaged in state surveillance, and the worthy prosecution and punishment. Also, when you're employing children to engage in state surveillance, which is demonic activity, teaching them, not different from in foreign countries, foreign nations, where they are placing large bazookas in the hands of children and teaching them how to murder them in the name of whatever it is that they worship or whatever it is that they believe in, whatever their agenda is. It's not different in America, where the entity is engaging in surveillance and terrorism using helicopters. I'm an American citizen, and this is supposedly the American government terrorizing an American citizen, doing so while they're maintaining knowledge of the fact that I'm exposing it. And that's why you have in the environment where the fake sun, that's necessarily a fake sun, that's a light source, that's the evidence that a population is group stalking, while it is, you saw it at 9 in the morning at the same property. Well, this is yesterday evening at what is 6:19 p.m. And as I'm inside of my apartment, this is Tracy Banks's apartment, who is a documented group stalker. What's happening inside of her apartment is revealing what she is engaged in, what she remains knowledgeable of, regardless of that demon, that malicious actor driving away from her apartment, also because she's aware of the fact that her name is being mentioned and that she's being documented. It's not removing responsibility in the same way that the population is still group stalking. You don't step out of the shoes of the state because you drive away from your apartment or because you go to work. Okay, or because you send text messages asking questions as though you don't know what's going on in your apartment. That's revealing a severe mental illness. It's the picture, the quintessence, as I've documented, of malice. Okay, this is the unintelligent conduct flying over the apartment of third-party group stalker Tracy Banks, and doing so while I'm documenting the pattern of conduct, which is what the entity is doing through commercial airline planes, which is crossing a path, amplified audible activity pursuant to federal stalking, intending to obstruct justice, not only maintaining the elements of monitoring, in other words, but also engaging in what is a criminal act of obstruction of justice, threatening, intimidating, retaliating against the target individual who was blowing the whistle on the state, who was prosecuting the state, and the people of the state, Avanath communities, who's living inside of apartment number 41, and Avanath communities who's profiting off of both their employees, the vendors on the property, and the residents who are group stalking with the state, who's flying over my apartment, while all of them together are engaging in the P.O.C, doing so with real-time knowledge of what it is that I'm documenting. And that's what you see here when they're flying over my head. There's the fake sun flying directly over the apartment, and they're going to federal prison. Okay? Group stalking in relevant position in the engineered light that's over the same light source that's it's still in alignment to me at the same property. 408 West G Street in Ontario, California. There's no sun or sunrise or sunset or any sun over the Alvarado Gardens at all, where I'm showing you that specific environment. It was there nonetheless when I was in LA, but that's not the sun. That's not the natural environment, nor could it ever be anywhere in Miami, Florida, let alone in Los Angeles, where I'm showing you a duration of time analysis from 9 a.m. as I'm capturing both from September 25th yesterday yesterday to September 26th today. It's over me up at the top of my head at the same apartment at 9 in the morning. And while I'm stepping outside of the same apartment in the evening, and while I happen to capture very damning evidence like that, I'm subject to more terrorism by the demons who are stalking in helicopter this morning again, as I'm going to show you the video that I'm reviewing, and all of the people of the state who are going to federal prison based on the state's inability to protect. All they do is incriminate and intensify its inevitable punishment for engaging in domestic terrorism in the United States, which is not going to be tolerated. And it is the basis for disbanding of terrorist organizations such as the Ontario PD and permanent removal from domestic terrorist leaders of terrorist organizations such as Mike Lorenz and Alan D. Wapner. Okay. The entity is maintaining nothing that Alan D. Wapner represents nothing other than a commercial means. Represents public corruption. This demon is also on the Ontario City Council, City of Ontario, who's posting letters, speaking to inspecting the apartment based on their ability to do so. They're group stalking every trash dumpster, every city municipality worker, every utility worker driving City of Ontario vehicles, literally the city hall where the Ovitt Family Community Library is in the same location is group stalking. And so is the mayor, Paul Leon. This is a demon, a corrupt government actor. And so is the demon sitting on that same Ontario City Council, who is the president of the Ontario International Airport, who's engaging in a statewide pattern of conduct that's very unique. Not only are they deviating from the address of Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, which is 2500 and 2900 Airport Drive, nowhere near 408 West G Street, where you are necessarily hovering because you have not taken off and being at an elevation which would be far among any audibly perceptible manner when you're flying over, if at any point you actually are taking off from Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 from any of the airlines and their destinations. The entity is engaging in what is necessarily hovering, that's showing targeting, hovering over the senior citizen complex, and then heightening an elevation as though they're taking off somewhere adjacent to around the senior citizen complex, which they're not. And that's the common sense breakdown of what is clearly targeting in the specific environment where the fake sun is remaining and the entity stalking in helicopters.
P.O.C. There's the fake sun flying directly over the apartment.
And so is the entity in helicopter, because I'm documenting these demons who are going to federal prison, which the entity is aware of what I'm documenting on my phone on the internet, because Title 18 federal stalking criminal surveillance is underway while you are subject to surveillance in the U.S. You don't have any privacy. The government is currently violating your constitutional rights, which are an illusion. And while I am exposing that and I'm documenting and I'm speaking to those who are going to federal prison, who are going to be removed from custody of the people of the state, that's what these children represent, as the entity has made them sex offenders monitoring a woman inside of a private space, pacing around an engineer light, having them engaging in the entity's demonic pattern of conduct, which is terrorism by the government, employing those under the age of majority, making them sex offenders, making them terrorists, making them group stalkers. They're engaging in what is terrorism, and they're doing so under the age of majority, under the tutelage, if you will. This is Alan D. Wapner, less the title and less the income and position, a demon-possessed group stalker that's working for Avanath Communities in custody of minor children, who is responsible for the criminal conduct that those children are engaging in his custody, representing the people of the state. And while I'm inside of my apartment documenting that, as I'm capturing screen images of this conduct, this demon that's pacing in the engineered light, keeping me under surveillance, moving as they move pursuant to what I'm doing, and I'm capturing the impossible light. None of this is sunlight. Under the light source that's at the same property. 9 in the morning, this is 5:49 in the evening. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's over 8 hours, okay? The totality of the duration of time analysis includes 7:38, approximately 7:38 in the morning until after 6 p.m., which is what you see here. Terrorizing in a helicopter because the entity is keeping you under surveillance and is hostile to your exposing those who are going to federal prison even longer. The Avanath Communities employee, that entire family, is going to federal prison. The demon-possessed third party with license 5WUV 715, I believe, is going to federal prison. Let me document. She's group stalking in apartment number 55 with impunity. Every time the entity is group stalking in helicopter, it's speaking to how long she's going to federal prison, because that's the entity on whose behalf she's group stalking. Her license plate is 5WUV 715. She's engaged in this is a psychopath. Pacing, stalking somebody while you're inside of your apartment, and the ability to do so is based on the convenience, showing the intent of a population to group stalk when the unnatural is occurring. The supernatural is occurring. Not only the engineered light inside of the apartment, but not only the fake sun over the apartment complex, over me at the apartment complex, while I happen to have evidence showing that this is what's happening everywhere that I go, and it's not naturally possible. The entity is also engaging in what is arriving and terrorizing me in helicopters, which is going to put this demon in apartment 55, license plate 5WV 715, in federal prison. Okay. And this is what the entity is doing with real-time knowledge of what it is that you're documenting on the phone, on your communication devices, your computers, what you're looking at on television. These are all communication devices where surveillance is occurring on the internet, controlling the operation of your devices. What the devices that you're buying from Amazon, your smart lights, your Ring cameras, these are all communication devices. You are under surveillance, okay? And it's something that I'm exposing and I'm prosecuting for. And the entity, I want to be clear, is intensifying that prosecution, not helping. And since they want to engage in terrorism, they are going to federal prison. And this is a disbanding of another terrorist organization, the Ontario Police Department. Not a police department, not a law enforcement agency, devoting their operations to stalking me where the fake sun is rising and setting. That's how you know I'm the center of the universe of this corrupt terrorist organization that is not a law enforcement agency, that is not at the same time legitimate while engaging in entirely illegitimate and psychotic and sexually violent P.O.C, pattern of conduct. The two are not occurring. They are fully exposed as a terrorist organization, and Mike Lorenz is of the same condition. He is the leader over an army of demons who are engaging in a demonic pattern of conduct where this system of surveillance that's being exposed, and it's exposing to the demise of the people of the state who are going to federal prison with those demons who are the Ontario police and a part of the Ontario International Airport engaging in surveillance using commercial airline planes. Unfathomable. Terrorizing and psychologically harmful criminal conduct that is intended to not only obstruct justice, but is intended to keep you under surveillance. This is surveillance that's occurring in the sky space pursuant to elements, light activity, audible activity, and maintaining presence all around your path. It is referred to as what is relevant positioning in that remarkable environment, which is juxtaposed to what you're looking at while a demon 55 amplified audible activity while I move my arm around. She's going to federal prison. That's fine. 5WUV 715. Impunity by a mentally ill psychopath whose documented criminal engagement in the pattern of conduct is with the Ontario police, with the Ontario International Airport, and she's going to federal prison. So the entity is engaging in this conduct while doing so in an environment that is juxtaposed with what you're looking at the sky space at 10:20 in the morning over the Miami-Dade Police Department in Miami, Florida. Tyreek Hill is being arrested under a light source, not the sun. While you are looking at the evidence of the light source, there's only one sun. So while it's remaining over me in Woodside and Ontario, California, now because I left Holiday Inn in Hesperia, California, where it was rising and setting, and the two are not happening at the same time, it's exclusive with regard to the light activity created surrounding that fake sun that's remaining over that hotel building. That's what the entity is now doing in Ontario, California, pointing out the criminality of CAL FIRE, of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, of the San Bernardino County Fire Department, and the entity that's maintaining the elements of monitoring with the demon-possessed population as I remained in Hesperia, the same entity, the state of California. And that criminal system is evidenced through the supernatural, the maintenance of a light source that is under no circumstances the natural environment. Okay, there's not one sun over the Holiday Inn in Hesperia. In other words, one sun over Alvarado Gardens all day long, and also remaining over Woodside Senior Apartments. There's only one, and there's no provision for there to be a sun, contrary to what you're seeing on the body cam of the Miami-Dade Police Department, who engaged in an arrest. And the legality and illegality of that arrest is based on that which is not a part of the current dialogue, and it is the fact that the government is engaged in criminal surveillance, which is demonic at its core, and you can see it. The evidence of it is through the unnatural environment that you are not paying attention to, and you can see it above their head when they're engaging in what is an arrest of Tyreek Hill. Okay, this is where the entity is stalking in helicopters. I want you to see again, the entity flies directly over my head. It's targeting not only through the specific environment that you see, the fake sun and the engineer light, it's targeting as I'm documenting on my phone and they're arriving in helicopter. That's how you're recognizing targeting. It's also targeting because the entity is engaging in what is Title 18 federal stalking, section 2261A subsections 1 and 2. And as I document on my phone inside of this apartment, which is not a private space, it's not a private residence, there is no such privacy in the specific environment. Everybody's going to be prosecuted for the address, the license plate, whatever it is that I document you, and everyone that's in relevant position to where you're at. Because it's not just the apartment complex. Everybody around, the entire population is group stalking. And so is the airport, and so is the police departments, and so are the fire departments. This is the prosecution of the whole state. And the unintelligent conduct admitting to real-time knowledge pursuant to a well-documented P.O.C. includes the following, which you will also see documented again this morning. Flying over my head,
P.O.C.
under the fake sun.
The fake sun flying directly over the apartment, and they're going to federal prison.
As I'm documenting the
That's
P.O.C.
the analysis of Avanath communities. While the entity listens to you, point out their criminal conduct, equally barbaric, not different from Afghanistan.
And this is the fake sun that was still here, as you saw my shadow appearing on this building at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is what I'm referencing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, by the way. I will show that right here because this is what I'm reviewing also on my phone. And this is exposing who is indeed going to federal prison. Avanath Communities employee and the family that is living in apartment number 41 who is engaged in 24-hour surveillance for which they're going to federal prison. They're engaged in federal stalking with the state for which they're going to federal prison. They're engaged in surveillance through contributing to the delinquency of minors, making them terrorists and sex offenders and group stalkers with the people of the state, with the state of California, for which they're going to federal prison. They're engaging in what is posing an impermissible threat, for which they're going to federal prison. And they're acting with impunity while that police department is still engaging what is threatening my life because these demons are hostile to being documented. And that real-time knowledge is shown also through the specific environment. The entity together is group stalking. The entity together is group stalking as one who's engaging in federal stalking. So this is what I documented at 2 in the afternoon, and this is what I'm reviewing while the entity is keeping me under surveillance, while I'm on my communication device, and everything that I'm stating and doing is public information, which is speaking to what's inspiring the arrival of the helicopter activity at that point in time, because the entity is always stalking in helicopters. The entity engages in a pattern of seeking to obstruct justice by threatening you, intimidating, retaliating against you, by stalking you in a helicopter, terrorizing and psychologically harming you, and by stalking you in a helicopter because you have the presence of mind and the ability to document and enforce your rights. Contrary to what the entity sought to do, it's clearly not working. This is revealing severe mental illness, which is another basis for permanent removal from law enforcement. The demon possessed, this public corruption is indicative of not only demon possession. You're talking about how you're referencing that and how you're identifying that in the secular. It's relevant to what are malicious psychopaths. This is mental illness. This is a public safety concern. While this criminal conduct sought to secretly continue and seeks to murder and kidnap an American citizen, silence them as opposed to cease engaging in that criminal activity. Another basis for disbanding a corrupt police department, a terrorist organization. Now, this light source, this is what I'm referencing at 2:41 in the afternoon. I'm standing at the same location at 10:43 in the morning, okay? And so this is what you're looking at. And as I'm reviewing this, we're going to review the license plates of the people of the state who are in this video down here, captured at 10 in the morning, and they're going to federal prison. Because the entity is engaging in the same pattern as I document the people. The entity is engaging in what is not working. Bullying the prosecutor, bullying the one who's blowing the whistle will not work to obstruct justice. You go to federal prison for trying to obstruct justice. This informs federal policy, and this is seeking to intensify that prosecution. It is the basis for disbanding terrorist organizations. Okay, so this is what the entity is doing pursuant to a P.O.C, pattern of conduct, very well documented. And this is, I want you to see the same location at the same apartment complex and the duration of time analysis, 10:43 in the morning and 2:29 in the afternoon. 11, 12, 1, 2, that's 4-hour duration of time where the entity, and that's just capturing a point in time. The light source is documented as early as 7:38, approximately 7:38 in the morning until after 6 p.m. in the evening, while I am inside of apartment 51. Apartment 51, the sunrise and the sunset, none of this at the same time is seen through the window of my apartment at Alvarado Gardens. It's not going to be seen while it's rising here at Woodside Senior Apartments on the left side of my person, while I'm looking outside of door number 51 in Ontario at Woodside Senior Apartments. It's not seen through the window of my living room at Alvarado Gardens at 1806 North Alvarado Street, apartment number 6, facing the hillside. Okay, it's also at the sunset where you're looking at the same entity, group stalking and helicopters pursuant to federal stalking, seeking to obstruct justice while you're documenting the criminal system that you're subject to, which is a conspiracy to murder and kidnap you. You should be enforcing your rights. The entity seeks to obstruct justice, which is the basis upon disbanding terrorist organizations that demons, corrupt government actors such as Mike Lorenz is both aware of and is fully engaged in furthering that criminal system while it's happening under his corrupt and dangerous leadership. You're not ignorant about the pattern of conduct that's occurring under your watch. This is exposing that corrupt actor. Okay, the entity is doing so in an environment where that sunset at 6 p.m. where the police department that's engaging in state surveillance and federal stalking, seeking to obstruct justice, is serving to intensify the prolonged prison terms of the people of the state group stalking with it. That light source is not in alignment with my bedroom window at Alvarado Gardens at 1806 North Alvarado Street, apartment number 6, facing Alvarado Street, which is fully documented. Okay, it's mutually exclusive. And at no point in time when I'm giving you juxtaposition of two crime scenes in California, is there any provision for the son to be in Miami, Florida, where you saw on body cam published on the world, on television, on the internet media, social media, you saw the arrest of Tyreek Hill at 10:20 in the morning on September 8, 2024. Well, I'm showing you the evidence of a light source based on what's supposedly the natural environment, the conduct that a target individual is hallucinating, imagining in their mind. They're paranoid schizophrenics, but I'm showing you the irreducible evidence that is insurmountable. There's a light source that's not the natural environment as you would refer to it as the sun. That's not the sun. There's only one of them. And it's either over Miami-Dade, Florida at 10:20, or it is rising and setting in Woodside Senior Apartments and at Alvarado Gardens from 7 until after 6 p.m. in the evening. All three of those examples are impossible to coexist. They're also impossible to exist on their own unilaterally. This is speaking to a statewide system that's occurring in the rest of the country as well. Okay, so this is where the entity is arriving in helicopters pursuant to knowledge of what I'm documenting on my phone inside of this apartment, which is not a private space, which is how, by the way, police departments are able to pull out their cell phones and play video, audio of the conversations occurring inside of this apartment. This is where Tracy Banks is residing, and her act with this same terrorist organization who's flying over my head day and night in helicopter is not removing her from the criminal conduct that she remains responsible for and engaged in, while she is physically away from the apartment, still a part of the same entity, still engaged in federal stalking, representing the same entity that's group stalking with the state. Just want to point that out. The entity, literally the same terrorist organization. This is Jay Burnett in particular, playing on his communication device where federal stalking is underway, engaging in kidnapping pursuant to criminal summoning with Tracy Banks, the same property, Woodside Senior, who was group stalking in 2024. This is what they were doing in 2019. And this terrorist organization is engaged in federal stalking, pulling out their phone while they are writing up the charges that they're going to manufacture with regard to the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, who also has no legitimate jurisdiction, has no authority under the law, while they're fully engaged in that P.O.C. And the fake sun remains over me while the Ontario police drive from Woodside to West Valley Detention Center, and the demons are calling themselves deputies and medical workers, and the people of the state who are inmates are the same demon-possessed entity wearing inmate uniforms, group stalking in the jails. I cannot make this up. This is exactly what they're doing in these facilities in the state. So I want to be clear. While they may be accused of crimes, while they may be convicted of crimes, they have a right constitutional. And I want to be clear, even these demon-possessed group stalkers have a right to not be subject to this psychological torture. Their group stalking, which is demonic activity. This is what I want to be clear. The entity is group stalking in the jails and in the mental wards where they're engaging in the pattern of conduct, replete with the engineer light, replete with the fake sun, and the demons who are bearing badges representing a terrorist organization such as the Sheriff's Department, group stalking with the inmates, the people of the state. So I want to be clear. This is a targeting conduct that I documented, and federal stalking is underway. Okay, because I'm not going to go too deep in that because I fully discussed this on the podcast and it's already documented. Just giving you ongoing relevant history while the entity is foolishly providing evidence against the people of the state. These elderly people are going to federal prison. Every single last one that I'm documenting, and they're going for a prolonged period. They will not be retiring. They will not be getting out and collecting ongoing Social Security, not Social Security, but the federal housing benefits. It's relevant to what their criminal conduct that they're engaging in. So you're living at a crime scene and you are currently receiving benefits from the state or federal government. You're not going to be qualified based on your criminal record. Okay, receiving Social Security may or may not be contingent upon a criminal record, but if it is, you're not getting that either. Just speaking to how the ways in which you're going to prosecute the population and create public policies that are serving to deter that population that is engaged in statewide surveillance with that government that engages in terrorism and psychological torture in helicopter because the demons are mad that they're being documented. So you're going to be federally prosecuted, and your hostility and the ways in which you act out that hostility, which is unlawful, threatening the life and safety of another, is going to be used against you, and you're going to federal prison for even longer. This is the mental illness that is manifesting in criminal activity by the corrupt entity that is the state of California. So I want to be clear. The same terrorist organization engaged in kidnapping as I documented at the same property, and the entity is pulling out his cell phone, Jay Burnett of the Ontario Police Department, pulling out his cell phone while the entity thought that they were going to have me kidnapped, that they were going to achieve this plan, this plot, this conspiracy to murder and kidnap me, in other words. The demons that seek to sacrifice. This is what Satan is doing to people in this country. It's demonic, and it's the entity intends to sacrifice you. Just want to be clear. With regard to a prosecution, not speaking about demonic spirits and whatnot in federal legislation, you're talking about a malicious malicious pattern of conduct by a public entity that is practicing what is public corruption, seeking to conspiring to murder and kidnap someone. It is a kidnapping because they have no authority under the law. It's a murder because it's an unlawful taking of a human life while they don't even have authority under the law that they're exercising, while they are masquerading as law enforcement agencies and government actors. It's a murder while they're engaging in the P.O.C. And it's a murder committed not just by that government actor that's masquerading as law enforcement agency. It's a murder by the whole entity that's group stalking. That includes the community Woodside Senior Apartments. That's how those facts work with regard to the prosecution of the state that's engaged in state surveillance. Okay, the entity is group stalking in helicopter, and doing so through the same entity that can pull out their cell phone and play on their phone the argument that occurred between myself and Tracy Banks, a third party who was still being documented while she intentionally left her apartment because I'm documenting her so heavily. She can drive away from her apartment all she wants. This demon-possessed third party malicious group stalker sought to sacrifice me with the same terrorist organization flying over my head at the same apartment complex where there would never be a sunrise and a sunset at the same location. And because she drove away is not ceasing her engagement in that pattern of conduct. She is still fully engaged in terrorism and sexual violence with this demon in apartment 55, with the demons of the Ontario Police Department, with the demons of the Ontario International Airport, with the demons of the City of Ontario, with the demons who are vendors coming onto the grounds, the demons who are living at the crime scene representing Avanath communities, employees, and the family who are demon-possessed group stalking with them, including their children in tow. Tracy Banks does not cease to be a part of that same entity. She's also engaged in federal stalking, sending text messages, which is relevant to the ongoing criminal pattern of conduct. It's a criminal act. Every phone call, every text message is a criminal act. It's Title 18 conduct. And they use it to engage in surveilling you with real-time corporate knowledge that demons maintain while they're keeping you under surveillance, group stalking you. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that ongoing context is not missed. She's being documented while she's in her apartment. While I'm subject to this P.O.C., she's being documented while I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm being subject to the same P.O.C. that originated when I was in Ontario. L.A. was doing the same criminal system that was underway in San Bernardino County. In L.A., you're seeing what is the specific environment, showing you what is a pattern of conduct readily identifiable, because the natural environment cannot possibly consist of a sun being anywhere in Miami, Florida, rising and setting at Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, and also rising and setting, which the sun is never going to be doing that. It's a gaseous ball of fire engaged in constant movement, not rising and setting for a duration of 11 plus hours at one apartment complex, one strip of land at that apartment complex at that. Tracy Banks and the rest of the entity is being documented while I was in an entirely different region documenting the same entity, the state of California, who uses helicopters to terrorize and psychologically torture the one whom they're group stalking, and also while they're engaged in federal stalking and violation of Title 18, while they are keeping you under surveillance, knowing what you are publishing, knowing what you're talking about inside of your supposedly private space. It is revealed that it's not private. Nothing that the entity is doing in that environment is private either. That's why the demon in 55, she's living at a facilitating venue and she's going to federal prison. So are the demons that are living in apartment 41. So are the demons who are group stalking in the video that I'm going to go through right now, because this is what is inspiring the entity's criminal conduct, which is prosecuted as the highly unintelligent concessions that are provided while they are group stalking as an entity, the state of California, doing it vicariously through the population who are the people of the state, who have no protection under the Constitution. Nothing that they're engaging is private activity. They are serving a statewide system, which is a conspiracy to murder and kidnap an American citizen. And it is shown, it is highlighted, standing out like a sore thumb under a fake sun and an engineered light that makes no sense with regard to the placement of that light source that's remaining all day. And the engineered light that I'm showing you all inside of the apartment of Tracy Banks, who is being documented while she pays rent here. She lives here. And that's also common sense. You're not ceasing to be a murderer when you commit a murder in Redlands, California, and then you drive out to Las Vegas as though you are walking away from being a part of a murder that took place. You're still a part of that murder. That's the pattern of conduct. That's the illogical conduct. This is P.O.C. while she's entering right now. It's currently, by the way, 11:27 a.m. So the entity is maintaining the elements of monitoring while crossing a path is occurring, entering, and the impossible light activity is also occurring. And this is what I want to reveal with regard to the specific environment. At what is 2:41 in the afternoon and what is 10:43 in the morning, I want to be clear. What's happening in the apartment is on behalf of the Ontario Police Department, who does the same elements while doing so in a helicopter that is specifically intended to terrorize and psychologically harm you. The same elements are underway when you're entering and exiting the facilitating venue. So That's what's being documented right now at 11:28 in the morning in the specific environment where the fake sun is over that apartment complex, and specifically over me and that apartment at that apartment complex. All right. The entity is maintaining this light source, and this is what I was documenting. This is where the Ontario police are group stalking in helicopter, which is placing the people of the state and that police department that's group stalking in federal prison. All right, so at 2:29 in the afternoon, this is what I'm documenting, the specific light that is remaining present. So again, as I'm giving you all of that context, Tracy Banks arrives. That's not a coincidence. This is a demon that knows that she's being documented and is, again, liable to arrive at any point in time, regardless of what it is that she's stating about where she's going or what she's doing. You're dealing with malicious demons, and they are obsessively engaging in what is very demonic and revealing mental illness that is no longer concealed while they're engaging in the pattern of and exhibiting that high level of malice. These are the ticking time bombs who are on the evening news every day, engaging in criminal conduct that the entity that's reporting the news to you, the people of the state, as I'm driving by ABC news station in Los Angeles, California on the freeway, the light source is remaining over me while those news stations are engaging in that pattern of conduct. I'm driving by these news stations in Los Angeles, and they're reporting the news to you as well. They're reporting the news to you under the fake sun. This is speaking to the full circle entity that is engaged in the pattern of conduct. And news is presented to you, reported to you regarding, oh, there was no sign, there was no indication. This is totally without any warning that any such violence would occur. Who knew there was no indication that they would engage in shooting up the whole office and killing all of their co-workers? It's the demon-possessed people of the state who in the state of California are engaging acts of violence inexplicable, and I put that in air quotes, on a daily basis, where I'm showing you my documentation of being subject to surveillance and targeting under a fake sun all day long. And you can literally look at the news of what's happening just in California. You don't even have to look at what's going on in Miami, Florida, under the fake sun, where Miami-Dade is engaging in an arrest of an American citizen. All right. So the entity is maintaining a fake sun over me, and I'm documenting, and you can look at the news where they're reporting the news to you about the people of the state in California engaging in violence. They're jumping out of their cars and attacking each other for no legitimate purpose. These are demons. These are the people of the state who are group stalking. And the people of the state are also reporting the news to you. And the people of the state that are group stalking me, stalking in helicopters and airplanes, while they're engaged in federal stalking, they're all going to federal prison. You can mark my words. So the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct and doing so while they are keeping me under surveillance and aware of what it is that I'm documenting. This is the real-time knowledge that Tracy Banks maintains while she walks into her apartment to maintain elements of monitoring and is not ignorant about anything that's occurring while I remain inside of her apartment where she pays rent at a facilitating venue where she's been engaged in the pattern of conduct for years with the same terrorist organization. And she's going to federal prison with them. So the entity, and she's engaged in ongoing documented acts of kidnapping with them as well. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that while you hear her enter and exit, it's audible activity, light activity while the fake sun remains over this apartment. She is monitoring while living at the crime scene. And that's exactly what number 55 is doing, living directly above, pacing all day and all night, driving out of the complex, group stalking with the police and the Ontario International Airport in engineered light that's in the same exact manner at nightfall, which I will also show you as well. This is the entity that's maintaining this light source. This is the environment at 10:48 in the morning today, and this is the light source that is captured while I'm standing at the same exact position in the afternoon. And you can see that I'm standing outside of the apartment. This is where I'm standing. Again, this is 10:43 to 10:48 in the video, and this is where I am, just so you can see that I am outside of the apartment capturing the entity stalking in helicopter. I'm standing at the same exact position. This is the fake sun while I'm standing at the same exact location where I was in the afternoon, 10:43 in the morning. This is where I'm standing at 2:29 in the afternoon, and you will see the fake sun is still over me at the same property. This is not the natural environment. This is where Tracy Banks is engaging in seeking to sacrifice her own flesh and blood. I want to be clear with regard to the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of God, those who belong to the Lord Jesus, his children. He draws a sword, and those who are in darkness, they will engage in targeting you while they serve Satan. They may be your blood related to you, but spiritually speaking, they are your enemies, and it is manifest through the conduct that is designed to sacrifice you, to treat you like an enemy as though you're not a blood relative. Because what is more substantial than blood? It's not a matter of water and blood and water, as you've heard, blood is thicker than water. It's a matter of spirit, spiritual darkness, and those who are of the light. And that's how you have a mother targeting her own child. She gave birth to me, but she is no less of a demon-possessed group stalker, a terrorist who's going to federal prison, just like the demon in apartment number 55, whose license plate again is 5WUV715. You are fully engaged in group stalking in the specific environment with the state of California. California. When you are in the specific environment, it is not based on any familial relationship. It is speaking to malice, and the facilitation that is employed is based on how long, will determine how long you're going to federal prison. And by the way, all of the relevant crimes that entity engages in, such as fraudulent acts, trying to steal your identity, criminally defaming you, criminally summoning that entity with whom they're group stalking, all of which Tracy Banks is engaged in. She's going to federal prison, and the entity is right now flying over this apartment complex in planes and helicopters while you're looking at the evidence of the specific environment. There's no sun that would ever be in Miami, Florida, or over Alvarado Gardens from 10:43 to 2:29 p.m. This is evidence of what is an unnatural occurrence. It's impossible to occur. It's a supernatural. You can see it through the windshield of the vehicle parked at this property. That's the entity that's group stalking by living and working here with the rest of the demons who are employed here, not only coming onto the grounds, but also living, which is what the demon in number 51 represents, the demon of 55 represents, the demons of 41 represent. The demons that are pacing on the sidewalk, walking to and from their vehicles to the dumpster, crossing a path, in other words, and that's what the airport and the police department are engaged in together in that readily identifiable environment, which is nobody's imagination. This is criminal defamation that the entity engages in when they are targeting you, okay? Doing so with that criminal agenda is speaking to malice and impunity, and you are going to federal prison as opposed to that targeted individual, and the malice with which you act will be noted in your federal prosecution. This is a crime committed by the entity, don't forget that, and is doing so revealing a very severe mental illness, which the world needs to also be made aware of. And so this is what I want you to recognize, and everything that you're hearing in the background, my voice is audible activity, and so is everything else pursuant to the entity that is maintaining presence all around, inside and outside of the apartment in a specific environment. So this is relevant positioning, light activity, and and audible activity with regard to monitoring where you live and pay your rent, and you're going to federal prison all the same. So the entity is maintaining at 11:35 a.m. I want to make sure I document that as well. Continuing the pattern of conduct, the juxtaposition of a crime scene, the entity is maintaining this environment as I'm standing at the same location yesterday in the afternoon at 2:29 till 2:41 is when this video was created. And you're looking at what is the shadow of the of this gate right here, and the shadow of my person on the wall, upright at a distance away from me. That's impossible light activity, which is, again, the product of the sun being over my head, has nothing to do with the light activity that you're looking at, okay? That's speaking to the pattern of conduct as well. That's the same character of light that fills the apartments, has nothing to do with the light source that's remaining over the apartment for the duration of the day for 11 plus hours. So this is where the entity is also stalking in helicopters, pursuant to knowledge of what you're doing on your phone, on the internet, on your computer, what you're watching online, what you're doing with regard to the Wi-Fi inside of that apartment. That's not a private space. It's a facilitating venue. Engaging in a perpetual sex offense, because you're invading the privacy corporately of an American citizen, and you're going to be prosecuted as a violent sex offender in doing so. But this is not private. None of it is protected. None of it's protected under the Constitution, and the government doesn't have a right to do it directly using helicopters, using fire ambulance and emergency vehicles, nor do they have a right to do it vicariously through the people of the state who are engaging in that P.O.C. Okay? So this is the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, and you're listening to what is impunity of the entity that is indeed going to federal prison and exhibiting mental illness. Okay, so that is the entity that's maintaining that the elements of monitoring. And I just want to be clear, 11:36 a.m. This is federal stalking, which I'm documenting on the document, the WSA-the people. This is what she's doing while the entity is flying over the apartment in helicopter, using the people of the state that she's talking to on the phone. That's audible activity, relevant positioning, and light activity. Okay, don't be distracted, because this is what the demon is doing. And this is the mentally ill psychopath who's going to federal prison. Her name is Tracy. And that's Daryl Mandy on the phone. They're both going to federal prison. It is currently, again, 2:41 p.m. Just documenting with regard to what's surrounding me while I am documenting, and that's ongoing malice that the entity does using helicopters. So the demon enters her apartment to maintain the same elements. Okay, mental illness is that no sane person would provide that evidence against themselves and everyone else. Okay, so I just want to make sure that because that's everything that's occurring at the same time. So this is the specific environment at 2:41 where this demon is inside on a communication device monitoring, in the environment where the fake sun remains. So this is what you're looking at while you're hearing her monitoring right now, in violation of Title 18 and criminal surveillance, for which the state has no warrant to engage in it through the third party that's inside of this apartment, living above this apartment, filling this apartment complex, and maintaining presence all around this apartment where the fake sun is remaining. Okay, so this is, again, what is 2:41 and 10:48 a.m. That's today and yesterday at 2:41 in the afternoon. This is the evidence of what it is that I'm documenting while the entity is engaged in both group stalking, state surveillance, and federal stalking on communication devices and on the venue of the internet, which is in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. Okay, this is monitoring conduct that you're listening to, and also speaking to malice of a mentally ill psychopath who is engaged in ongoing years of criminal activity seeking to sacrifice, while this is a witch engaged in witchcraft, engaging in a demonic pattern of conduct, and that mental illness is no longer a secret. That criminal system is no longer a secret, and this is not different from the condition of Mike Lorenz, a terrorist leader over a corrupt police department who was flying over her apartment, where a fake sun is remaining over her apartment, and she is engaging in the elements of monitoring in a criminal manner, a highly malicious manner, for which the basis of federal prison for a prolonged term is worthy. Nothing less than that justice requires. Okay, and the third party that's on the communication device with her is engaged in the elements of monitoring knowingly and intentionally, speaking to impunity and malice, and that will not be dismissed or ignored or overlooked at federal prosecution. Okay, crying tears and talking about asking for mercy, it's irrelevant because the entity had no mercy against that American citizen who they're obsessively keeping under surveillance to their own demise at this point. Okay, it's not going to work, and this is also speaking to inform federal policy in this country. So that's what you're listening to in the background. We're going to get back to the screen recording because this is the evidence of a fake sun where all of those elements of monitoring are being maintained inside of this apartment. Okay, this is again 10:48 a.m. and 2:41 p.m. Yesterday in the afternoon, this is where the entity is maintaining the elements of monitoring, and this is what I was reviewing on my phone, where the entity is again today at 10:43 in the morning flying directly over my apartment, which is the same elements of monitoring, intending to psychologically torture, harass, and terrorize as an entity that's monitoring on the venue of the internet. Doing so right now still through the third party that lives at the apartment. So that's what you're listening to. That's the malice, that's the concerted conduct of the entity. Okay, that's the being accomplished right now through the person that pays the rent, just entering into the apartment to maintain the elements of monitoring, also aware of what's being stated about them while they're group stalking at a distance. So the entity is maintaining this elements of monitoring, and the video on the bottom is what I'm going to show you because this is what triggers the entity that is crossing path, and everybody that's documented at this crime scene is indeed going to be prosecuted for domestic terrorism. So this is again the P.O.C. This is again mental illness. I want to point out something. The movement, the noise is created pursuant to what I'm doing on a communication device. That's a demon-possessed person. That's a mentally ill psychopath whose mental illness is supposed to be maintained as a secret. It's not a secret. Both because you're a group stalker, a demon-possessed one, and because everything that they do as they do it with regard to maintaining elements is pursuant to the person whom they're keeping under surveillance. That's the reality of demon possession, and it's entirely psychotic while you do it to one who you gave birth to. Doing it with the corrupt police departments while you intend to sacrifice that person, and it turns out that that person that you sought to target is actually going to put you in federal prison. That is a psychopath that is requiring mental examinations, by the way, and that is the projection of the demon-possessed, by the way, who are actually mentally ill, seeking to falsely depict that targeted individual as mentally ill. Okay, so that's again relevant with regard to this environment that you're seeing outside. This is again at 2:41 p.m. Let's review this.
P.O.C. The impossible light activity that's on the door behind the front door is called impossible light activity, engineered light, directed lights, the direct evidence with regard to...
You're looking at my hand while I'm moving it. There's shadows. This is not the product of sunlight, okay? You're supposedly looking at sunlight that's on the ground. My shadow, which is creating dynamic light activity, this is what's remaining all around me while the demon-possessed who live and come onto the grounds and are flying over the sky space, the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Police Department, are keeping me under surveillance inside of the apartment, okay? That's impossible light activity. It's also the evidence of the demonic, those who practice witchcraft, who serve Satan. These are witches, that, and the fact that they serve Satan, just revealing what is spiritual darkness, which is coloring the nature of the crime. This demonic system is prosecution of a public entity that's engaging in demonic methods of surveillance. That's what's relevant when witches and warlocks are group stalking you. Okay, this is the entity that is engaged in a demonic pattern of conduct, and this light activity that's upright on the wall, is demonic.
All right, this is P.O.C. The impossible light activity that's on the door behind the front door is called impossible light activity, engineered light, directed lights, the direct evidence with regard to recognizing the crime scene where the people of the state are not only demon-possessed and legally referred to as the people of the state.
This is again the light source where I'm standing outside of the apartment at 2:41 in the afternoon. This is what I'm capturing, and this is what I was recalling while I was outside of the apartment, and the entity is amplifying plane activity.
Alright, this is what's amplified amplified inside of
the entity is engaging in what is sounding, this is outside of zoning laws, this is common sense. Outside of zoning laws, the airport located at 2500 and 2900 Airport Drive in Ontario, California does not mean that you are taking off over the senior citizen complex. It's outside of zoning provisions, and it's also obviously on its face. You have flown away from the airport to be at a low elevation, as though then you are rising in elevation from the Woodside Senior Apartments complex sky space, as though you're taking off here. It's highly unintelligent, and on its face, the evidence of targeting. You are also aware of the fact that it's targeting because this conduct is happening while the light source is remaining directly over the apartment that I'm remaining inside of. Okay, so as I'm capturing the group stalking by the Ontario International Airport using commercial airline planes, every airline that is doing business at the Ontario International Airline is engaged in both federal stalking and criminal surveillance with the entity that is using helicopters flying over the same apartment complex pursuant to real-time knowledge. That's federal stalking that the airport's engaging in, and also with the criminal intent to obstruct justice, terrorize, intimidate, retaliate, threaten your safety and your well-being while engaging in that conduct that they're surveilling, that's the evidence against it, in other words, is being documented, and they're monitoring that, okay, as well. So this is where the Ontario International Airport is flying over a senior citizen complex, both at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and also doing so in a manner where you are deviating from any path taking off from Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 to be at a low elevation, rising in elevation over the senior citizen complex, which is also outside of zoning provisions. The entity is doing so with regard to what it is that I'm documenting. So while I'm capturing this video, you're looking at crossing a path of the people of the state. Okay, 8WHC 403 is crossing path by walking in the engineer light. That's what you see here. Okay, maintaining elements as you open the front door, already in lying in wait conduct. This intent is known through the specific environment that's being maintained. That's how you know that this is not a coincidence or accidental or ignorantly underway. This is called lying in wait conduct, to be in a position where you are able to stalk with activity. You're stalking with light activity as you are already in a presence in the path right in front of me, opening the front door. There's the fake sun, and engineer light, not sunlight, covers all of the property. This is how you have a stationary light source 10 hours from now at the same address. This is how you have impossible light activity, my upright shadow on an apartment building while I am at the same apartment complex, by the way, 4 hours from now, 2:41, 2:43 in the afternoon. That's non-movement, and that's speaking to it's impossible that the natural environment surrounds Tyreek Hill, who was arrested in Miami, Florida by the Miami-Dade Police Department at 10:20 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. Okay, remember, it's not just surrounding what's going on at Woodside Senior Apartments, which is the state's pattern of conduct. This specific environment is documented throughout Southern California, showing every single last police department and sheriff's department, fire department, and the population engaging in an identical P.O.C, which is exposing demonic activity. It is demonic in nature. It is criminal under the Constitution. Okay, so the entity is doing so in an environment showing the intent to maintain the elements of monitoring, while the entity is maintaining aerial surveillance and doing so flying over the property where the fake sun is rising and setting, pursuant to real-time knowledge of what I'm documenting as I'm documenting it. And as I captured this video and I'm inside of my apartment comparing it with what was captured yesterday at 2 in the afternoon, the entity is immediately arriving in helicopter in this manner.
I see that it gets stalking by helicopter, flying right over the apartment, and I just want to be clear, the demons that you see with in parking spot number 19 is going to federal prison.
All right, and the one in parking spot number 19, they are the one, the entity threatens your life while you enforce your rights and document it. They're going to federal prison for that, and that is again the third party who is engaging in crossing a path conduct.
Alright, this is what's amplified inside of the all day long. That's called demonic pacing, and like I stated, at nightfall, that's called crossing a path. 21207
Hold on.
X2 is stalking in the path.
I want to recite that again because that's who's going to federal prison. This is a vendor on the grounds. Avanath Communities having relationships with the vendors coming onto the property, engaging in the elements of monitoring with the entity that knows exactly what you're documenting as you're documenting it. So do the people of the state that are on the grounds, engaging in that pattern of conduct as one. And this license plate is the third party who is indeed going to federal prison.
21207X2 is stalking in the path. So is 8WHC 403. So is 6A42707.
Those are the people of the state who are being documented. In addition to the third party, this is a demon and group stalking.
While pacing is occurring in the sky.
And you'll see pacing as they walk on the sidewalk. This is ongoing crossing a path. All they're doing is moving around all around me while a fake sun remains over the property and engineer light all over the grounds. It's not a sun and sunlight. This is revealing the demonic environment that surrounds you while you are subject to the same criminal surveillance here in the U.S.
This presents aerial surveillance under the fake sun that's over the...
So first of all, this is what you're looking at the same physical location. At 10:30 in the morning, 2:29, that's essentially 2:30. So let's count those hours. It's approximately 4 hours. 11, 12, 1, 4 hours. And it's at the same corner. And the light source remains over me as I move from the front door to that curb area where I'm capturing the Ontario International Airport group stalking. It's amplified in volume. They are crossing path under all circumstances. It's criminal. This is malicious conduct that the population, the entity engages in, using airports, police departments and sheriff's departments, fire departments, and the very population to maintain elements of monitoring, and it's demonic activity. It's demonic. Everything that they're doing is subject to very highly detailed, in sync conduct by demons who do not want it to be known that they are actually honed in and focused on your every move, including sex offenders obsessively consumed with what's going on with your genitalia. When your panties are down, when you're in a private space, it's all equally public information that they are consumed with, and that is a violation of your rights. It is a perpetual sex offense. In addition to that, as I document things such as a specific environment where the sun could not possibly ever be at Alvarado Gardens at any point in the day, let alone between 10:30 and 2:29. My evidence is filled with the light source being directly over the top of my head for the duration of the day, let alone between 10:30 and 2:29 in the afternoon. And what you see over my head at Woodside Senior Apartments, this is not over Alvarado Gardens. This is not what the LAPD was flying next to, underneath, or around while they were engaged in group stalking. That's exhibiting demon possession while you're engaged in state surveillance, while the entity is engaged in traditional stalking using helicopters. They were stalking so much, it is the basis that is established as stalking. Just because you're doing so in a helicopter, there is no legal basis where you cannot be found to be prosecuted for engaging in stalking using helicopters. It is only the entity that's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, criminal obstruction of justice, where the people of the state aren't complaining about the entity flying over the apartment complex day and night in helicopters and planes because they're fully engaged in that P.O.C. And the courthouse is fully engaged in that P.O.C., obstructing justice, facilitating this statewide system that is demonic. It is in service of Satan, while they're engaging in conduct that is equally and criminal stalking as it exists under existing state and federal laws. Because they're using helicopters is not an exception. Not only are they engaged in and documented as engaging in stalking traditionally in helicopters, LAPD in the specific environment, because there's no sun that's going to be over Woodside Senior and Alvarado Gardens like I documented. That's the supernatural. I've captured the demonic for you to witness. Witches and warlocks are group stalking, okay? The demon possessed are group stalking. And they occupy, make up police departments and sheriff's departments, fire departments. They are the very population in California engaged in that pattern of conduct, and they are highly unintelligent, not sophisticated whatsoever, and there's nothing elite about them, while they're closeted sex offenders and psychopaths group stalking you, trying to sacrifice you. Now, with regard to the prosecution in court, this is malicious conduct by a corrupt entity that's engaging in what is the ongoing conspiracy to murder and kidnap you, because they have no authority under the law. They are exercising fictitious authority while they are obsessively stalking you. And in California, the hallmark, that is the clear indicator, not only the specific environment, but being in that specific environment in helicopters. That's what the LAPD and the Ontario Police Department have in common, in a readily identifiable environment, pursuant to knowledge that they maintain while they are engaged in federal stalking, engaging in this heavily documented and repeated pattern of stalking and terrorizing and harassing as a demon-possessed entity that is keeping me under surveillance on my communication device, on the internet, in concert with the population. They're all going to be prosecuted together. The entity is stalking in helicopters, and so are the people of the state with them. They are holding hands, engaging in that ongoing criminal purpose to obstruct justice and terrorize you as one, while the entity sought to do this secretly. This is what people are suffering in this country in silence, in a corner somewhere, and nobody knows about it. I'm publishing it and exposing it, and I'm also going to prosecute it. Okay, so the entity is doing so in this environment. This is the light source at 2:41 in the afternoon yesterday, where my shadow was upright on the building in front of me, which is, again, supernatural light activity having nothing to do with the fake sun remaining stationary over a property. These are two distinct methods of identifying the crime scene. In the same way that you identify a murder victim, the blood spatter, the fingerprints on the knife or whatever weapon was used, it's the same ability to identify it, and it is demonic. Okay, this is what the entity is doing while they're inside of their apartment where they pay rent, where you have no shelter from or no constitutional protections. None of it is private activity. None of it is protected. Where, by the way, the government is telling on you and your federal prosecution as one entity. It will be individualized when you're facing the malice with which you facilitated that state's P.O.C. group stalking while living at a crime scene, group stalking while facilitating being in the presence, engaging in any elements of monitoring, while terrorism using helicopters, which is relevant to the psychological harms that Satan wants to inflict while keeping you under surveillance, seeking to criminally defame you. That's what's coming out of the mouth of these demons, and that's going to be used against them in the federal prosecution. Okay, that's relevant to what is the comprehensive prosecution of a corrupt entity. This is public corruption that is unprecedented and never been revealed before, but it is very much real and not within the imagination of any person, because we can all look at this supernatural evidence that is tangible, all of it together, and we can also reason together. Okay, so this is the entity that's maintaining this environment, doing so, the impossible light activity, and this is where the entity is stalking in planes and helicopters. And as I'm inside of my apartment capturing this and documenting the people of the state, the entity immediately arrives. And this is what I want you to see. The light source is at the same location where I'm standing outside of the apartment, replete with what is impossible light activity. That's my shadow upright. And the entity is maintaining the light source right over me. This is the same property, the same physical location as I step out at 10:30 in the morning at 2:29. That's not the natural environment under any circumstances. There's also a body of evidence showing that this is a pattern of conduct in the state of California. In addition to that, as I'm engaged in documenting this, the entity engages in the pattern within the pattern, which is terrorizing in helicopters while they are aware of that pattern of conduct being documented. Amplified audible activity of helicopter activity is the evidence of group stalking in helicopter. It is also it's already established that the Ontario Police is stalking in helicopters. So you can hear it. That is the evidence of the entity stalking in a helicopter, the timing with which they're doing so in that specific environment pursuant to federal stalking in violation of existing federal policy, Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. One of many existing federal laws. But I want to be clear, I've honed in on federal stalking statute, Title 18, but there are many other it's relevant to what the entity is doing. But I advocate using federal stalking statute, Title 18, and also including federal language in that federal statute to recognize the ways in which the demon-possessed are engaging in surveillance on the internet and online, which is relevant to interstate commerce. The fact that the entity is using trains, planes, and helicopters, the fact that the entity is group stalking on the roads and the highways, this needs to be built in and understood under the language of the existing federal statute with regard to surveillance that American citizens are subject to unbeknownst to you in this country. Okay, inside of what's supposed to be your private space, your castle, and it's not, where state surveillance is underway and it's in service to Satan. Okay, so this is what the entity is doing, and it is exclusive. A police department is engaging in a demonic pattern of conduct because they are demon possessed. An airport is engaging in a demonic pattern of conduct because demon-possessed people are flying those commercial airline planes. This becomes legally relevant because it's criminal conduct that the government is engaging in through the constituents of the state, when you can live at the crime scene in your apartment or in your house and maintain the elements of monitoring. It is demonic activity that is criminal. Okay, and this is what the entity is doing. And you have no business in law enforcement, in the legal profession, in the medical profession, working in any sort of public sector where you can fly planes, have access to any sort of pilot licensure, drive buses. School buses, being around children, being around the elderly, the vulnerable in society, whether or not they're the people of the state or not. This is protecting American citizens who are being targeted. It just so happens to be an incidental benefit of the demon possessed who are engaging in the system that they are also going to be guarded while they're elderly and while they are also children. You see the demons in apartment number 41, their children are exhibiting demon possession while their group is stalking. Okay, just want to point that out. But nonetheless, the fact that the demon possessed will benefit is not going to be a deterrent. It's serving to protect the people that are in this country that are subject to this demonic targeting system. And that is the focus. Like any other public policy, the people of the state are readily identifiable. They're in the specific environment and their behavior is also within a pattern of conduct, and they're fully engaged in a statewide system. It's not just that cult. It's not just that witch. It's not just that coven. The entity is engaging in a statewide pattern of conduct. And by the way, I've been subject to this since I was a child. Okay. The entity is doing so in concert with an entity that knows who you are, and that knowledge is shown through the specific environment. That's evidence of what is going to be analyzed as what is intended intent of a population to keep you under surveillance? What is intent of an entity to maintain the elements of monitoring? Pacing all around like cockroaches under the fake sun is light activity by a population. Pacing all around, maintaining amplified audible activity in the sky space is audible activity, light activity creation, and doing so in concert with the demons who are pacing all around on the ground, while they're all together maintaining what is federal stalking, criminal surveillance in the on the venue of the internet using communication devices. You're going to federal prison for that. All right. So this is what the entity is doing in that specific environment at the same property, the same strip of land, where the entity is maintaining a light source at the Hesperia Holiday Inn, which I just came from. It's remaining present through the hallway window of the Hesperia Holiday Inn from 7:51 in the morning until 3:05 in the afternoon. So while you're inside of your apartment under the fake sun at the Ontario Woodside Senior Apartments, and you're walking from your bedroom to the kitchen to access the microwave, which is a method of audible activity and light activity, and a demon who was pacing in a manner that is not above suspicion, or that which cannot be identified by any federal prosecutor or any other person that has trained their eye to recognize what demons are doing in an environment where you are surrounded by that cycle of evidence and that supernatural environment, you are understanding how a population is engaging in that pattern of conduct. And because the entity does so maliciously and with impunity, you're going to federal prison for even longer. It is no small term in federal prison to be documented engaged in domestic terrorism. You have another apartment complex which is engaged in systematic facilitation, and so is the population all around. 325 West G Street, 713 North Vine Avenue. In Ontario, California, the 636 North Vine Avenue, the 7-Eleven, they're engaged in ongoing profiting while they're maintaining the elements of monitoring, group stalking, and profiting. That's what Avanath Community is engaged in. I'm just speaking to all the ways in which the American citizen is going to drain the pockets of those who are profiting while state surveillance, which is the conspiracy to murder and kidnap. Understand, the entity, the government that has no authority, they're abusing the doctrines of probable cause and reasonable suspicion when they're stalking you. They are engaged in a conspiracy to murder and kidnap you, making up criminal charges against you, making up a mental illness against you when they've been engaged in targeting you with that entity, the same one that is blood related to you, that you're working with, that you're going to church with, that you're going to school with, that you are going out and socially being around them, the entity, when you're going to the mall and you're shopping with them, when you're going to the grocery store and you're amongst them and you don't have to know any of their names. The fake sun is over the grocery store. The fake sun is over the mailbox that you're walking to. The United States Postal Service is engaged in that pattern of conduct. This is all shown in the P.O.C. It's a statewide entity and there is no exception. So the entity is engaging in this conduct with a high level of malice and seeking to use that bully system against the little guy, the American citizen, who does not have the artillery, of the P.O.C. This is not only serving for the prosecution of a population, it's also exposing what is demonic activity, which you, those who have an ears to hear and ears to hear and eyes to see. This is for your awareness regarding what you are subject to, and do not be deceived because they are blood related to you or because you are so filled with love for them and you cannot fathom the fact that they actually hate you based on the spiritual darkness that they are overwhelmed by. And it is no legal argument. The fact that Satan made them do it, they're acting of their own volition, of high level of malice. Remember, a psychopath knows exactly what they're doing. They know how inappropriate it is. That's why they are conducting themselves as though they love you, as though they're your best buddy, as though they're your biggest fan when they're group stalking you with the state. Okay? Seeking to sacrifice you. Okay? It's a criminal act. The entity is engaging in this conduct, and I want to show you, like I stated, this is what the entity is maintaining, the light activity inside of this apartment. So look at this light activity. My shadow is upright on the wall. I want you to see this light activity while I am documenting this. This is the light activity, and the entity is I just want to be clear. The license plate that I documented, they are indeed going to federal prison, but this property is going to be prosecuted. This third party, he's also engaged in federal stalking with the Ontario PD, where this light source is still remaining at the same property in the evening. He's in custody of minor children. He's group stalking with them. That's why he's going to federal prison. He is acting with impunity, engaged in federal stalking. That's also why he's going to federal prison. He's acting with impunity, still group stalking on another day. That ongoing defiance, That impunity is relevant to that federal prosecution. He and his family are going to federal prison, and any of those that are not natural born citizens are also going to be subject to deportation upon federal prosecution. This is the light source that's over this property at 937. The light source is over me at 241 at the same property. This is indeed a third-party group stalker representing the population, representing specifically Avanath communities, who's going to compensate me for their residents, whom they're profiting off of, their employees, and the vendors coming onto the ground. Literally, the population, including the state and planes and helicopters, are threatening my life and keeping me under surveillance and psychologically harming me. It's occurring on your real property. You will be held liable for it, for the criminal conduct that you are engaged in. Let me be clear. Avanath Communities is a group stalker in the state of California. Their headquarters is in Irvine. Orange County is a documented group stalker. Costa Mesa Police Department, Orange County Sheriff's Department, fake son over me for the duration of the day. Okay? Avanath is profiting while this state surveillance system is underway on their watch. And they will be compensating me for civil damages that I continue to document the evidence of as I experience it. Flying over my head in helicopters. Avanath is, it is unlawful and against public policy to profit, which is what you are doing as a property management company, while this criminal system conspiring to murder and kidnap somebody is underway on your real property. You will be held accountable for it. Okay? They're a corrupt business, which is what the people of the state are doing, making money, this capitalistic society, while they are group stalking American citizens with the government. So I want you to see this light activity that you see above is the same exact light activity that's occurring at nightfall, which is speaking to that, which is where the Ontario International Airport is group stalking in the sky space, amplifying the sound of those planes and helicopters inside of the apartment. All right, that's heard at that distance. Amplification is demonic, showing the evidence of targeting. You also know it because this is where engineer light and a fake sun is rising and setting. Planes and helicopters, that distance, amplified inside of the apartment. This is on the podcast. Okay, the entity is doing so while you're being molested with engineered light, impossible light activity. This is the same exact light activity, okay, that you see during the day. There it is at nightfall, okay, where the entity is concentrating planes and helicopters. This is the prosecution of the state of California. This is exposing what is demonic activity. If you have a question regarding the reality of Satan, the enemy of your soul, who is a spirit, demon possession is revealed through what is the spirit of Satan that occupies human vessels. People who have this demonic spirits on them, those are the only people that are monitoring. Monitoring is demonic. You have the police departments that are exhibiting demon possession while they're engaged in criminal conduct. You have sheriff's departments and fire departments and literally the people of the state who you are blood related to, and strangers such as the demon of 55 who are engaging in group stalking, exhibiting demon possession while they're group stalking you. Their criminal conduct and also their condition needs to be worldwide known. Okay, because this is what the Lord Jesus is speaking to those who have an ear to hear. He is returning, and he's returning in judgment. All right, he is coming back, and he's coming back soon. And what Satan is doing is something that the world needs to recognize, and you are running out of time. If you do not already know the Lord Jesus as your Lord and Savior, he loves you, and he died for your sins. He is alive and well, sitting on his throne. And he is judging what Satan is doing. He's judging what the people of the state, what this corrupt government in California, what this nation is actually engaged in secretly. Sacrificing to Satan people who are innocent, who are being targeted by this corrupt act committed by the state of California as I'm exposing it. And it is the work of Satan. You are listening to a psychopath who is monitoring in real time, and she is going to federal prison for it. Okay? Has been engaged in this criminal system for a prolonged period, and her time has long been expired. Okay? This is impossible light activity that's on the wall in the same manner under the fake sun, that's remaining at the same property all day long. That's what you're looking at, where there is no property lights, no lights on the building. That is the explanation for the upright shadows, multiple shadows that you're looking at while the entity is stalking in planes and helicopters. That's the pattern of conduct of group stalking, okay? Where a population is engaging in a statewide system, the intent to do so in that specific environment. That's a massive sex offense, corporate invasion of privacy, and doing so as a corrupt government who engages in more terrorism and harassment in helicopters as you document and expose it. That's unfathomable. And you have a lot of people who are going to federal prison. Mike Lorenz is fully aware of the terrorist conduct that the department is practicing. So is Alan D. Wapner, the demon that's a corrupt government actor on the Ontario City Council, while the Ontario International Airport is centering operations by flying over a senior citizen complex outside of zoning laws, by the way, while they're engaging in the state's P.O.C. And they're exhibiting demon possession while they do so. All right. Again, this is currently, just so that you can see where you're looking at walking in and out of the kitchen. None of this is private, personal, protected conduct while I'm being monitored inside of this apartment where the fake sun remains. And it is currently, again, 12:06 p.m. This is P.O.C.